kind of let him off the hook, but he did nail him on that finally at the end of the debate, which is why I think Tim Walz really did a great service here. But I want to talk about that now, because Tim Walz, because of his debate performance and stuff and what happened with J.D. Vance and all that, and a lot of what his past stuff is, they said, well, you were kind of more moderate and then you moved to being more socialist. And Tim Walz's answer to that is, you call it socialism, I just call it being a good neighbor, which is essentially what socialism is. It's just helping each other out. But here's Fox. He's on Fox Sunday, and he's being interviewed, and she's going to try and tag him as a socialist, and he actually does a really good job of answering this, but I also want to show you how dishonest she is. And he ignores the dishonesty and just answers. But I thought this was a really good segment for Tim Walz. I thought he really nailed this. So let's see.
To the left, I think that is fair to say. Here's what the Intelligencer says. Walz had a fairly conservative voting record in Congress where he represented a red district. He used that record to win the governorship and then moved sharply left. Here's something that you said weeks ago.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Okay, so Merriam-Webster Dictionary on Socialism says it's a system of society or group living in which there's no private property, or this condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state.
Okay. I had to look this up because I'm like, so typically what socialism, that can be a form of socialism, it typically isn't the case. But it's not what socialism is by definition. That's just a type. Right? So I'm like, Merriam-Webster didn't do that. I mean, they couldn't have done that, right? Well, let's see. Socialism on Merriam-Webster. Let's look it up. Oh, wait, let's see if it loads. There it is. Here we go. Socialism. See, number 1. Any of various egalitarian economic and political theories or movements advocating collective or government ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Definition 2 is what she used. A system of society or group living where there is no private property. A system or condition of society in which the means of productions are owned by and controlled by the state. So that's a second definition of it. She's not using the primary definition because the primary definition doesn't sound bad.
People still may or may not agree with it, but yeah, it doesn't sound as severe, I guess.
No, but I want to get this. So start 3. A stage of society in Marxist theory that is transitional between capitalism and communism. Let's see. And is distinguished by unequal distribution of goods and pay according to the work done. So that's probably the more accurate one. What they're saying is, in current society, in a capitalist system, things are privately owned. And wealthy people make their money by owning stuff, not by working. The rest of us make our money by labor, by getting paid for our labor. We trade our labor for money. The rich make all their money by owning things, not by working. Right? What socialism is sort of Marx's idea of a step to communism. Socialism, the concept is instead of that group of people owning everything, right? We collectively all own everything. Now, either through the government or whatnot, but it has to be a democratic system. Right? So, if you work at a company, let's say you work at my company, Duncan Corp, right? Now, there will be an unequal distribution based on your level of work or whatever your deemed value is in a capitalist system, because socialism is still capitalism. But if you're working at my company, I have to give you a part of the company. Ownership while you're working at the company. So you collectively own it. So I can't just divvy out all the profits to myself. I have to divvy out some of the profits to you as a shareholder. So workers and shareholders are all the same. It's not a third party that's the shareholder that owns the company, it's the labor. And that's what they're talking about in a socialist system, is that labor owns the means of production, not private individuals. And that's why she's being deceptive, because she's trying to say, well, the government owns it. Well, no, the government would manage some of it, because they'd have to. Certain things that have to be managed through the government. And when she says no private property, they're not talking about you can't own a home. They're talking about you can't own a business outright. You have to split it between the workers. That's what that means. But she was very, very good about, let's just pick the one that makes it sound really bad. So let's see how Tim Walz responds, because this is just really stupid.
Did you mean to advocate for that here in the U.S.?
No, Shannon, look, I'm a capitalist. I was making the point of is Republicans oftentimes talk about socialism. And what I would make the case of is we build our roads collectively together. I don't think anybody's arguing that you should have to build your own road from your house to your business place or whatever. So I said this definition that the right uses about this, things that we collectively do together, that look, I believe in moral capitalism. I believe capitalism works and it lifts everyone up. But I also believe you have to make sure that there's things that we collectively do together. We educate our children by using our public schools. We build roads. We do some of the things like public health where we work together. So the point being on this is of trying to divide that, but you certainly can't have a capitalism that says billionaires get everything and the middle class gets nothing. And I think Kamala Harris...
I think he freaking nailed that one.
He did a really good job with that explanation. And he sort of, you know what? I gotta say, okay, you can tell he was a teacher because he sort of gently corrected her.
Yep.
I mean, because he could have like really smacked her, but he sort of, in a very like educational kind of way, like, you know, adjusted her definition.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then provided really accessible examples. Good job. See, we need more teachers in politics. I gotta say.
Absolutely. And the other thing about it that I love is this: is the thing that she's ignoring is socialism is a form of capitalism. It's just one where private ownership of is distributed.
I don't think she's ignoring it so much as that she doesn't know that.
Yeah. Well, she's trying to spin it as you can't own anything. When in fact, no, you would actually own a part of everything in a socialism.
Well, the right also has a tendency to say socialism and apply like fully communist, like as,
right.
You know, like full 100% communism concepts. And they try to throw that under a socialism label. You know, they're trying to shove things under it that don't belong there.
What they do is really simple. So they sit there and go, Soviet Union was communist. The Chinese government is communist because they say they're communist, but they weren't. They were dictatorships.
Yeah, they weren't communist either.
Yeah, you'd have to be a full democracy to be communist, and they weren't. So what they do is they say those are communisms, even though they're not, by definition, communism. It's just what they call themselves because they're trying to sort of placate the people. It's like the Nazis called themselves socialists, and they weren't. They were fascists. They were the opposite. They killed most of the socialists because that's who they go after first, academics and socialists. So they make a false equivalency and say, oh, the dictators are the communists, right? And that's what communism is, and socialism is just another word for communism, so it's all bad. When what they don't understand is all the people they're saying are bad, and what they're saying about communism that's bad is all right-wing ideology. It's the opposite. They're saying the enemy is us, and so you have to trust us. It's the weirdest fucking dance, and people buy it. But Tim Walz just basically said, no, I'm talking about capitalism, but I'm also talking about we have to distribute some of the resources out and do things like, oh, I don't know, roads and schools and police and fire and trash. Oh my God, is that socialist that the government provides those things for taxes? Well, now she's stuck in a corner where she's got to say, well, yeah. That is socialism, Tim. People shouldn't have to. They should have to build their own roads. And police their own towns. And if there's a fire...
Which ironically, if that was what was forced upon you, you'd have to join a little commune where you pooled resources to create a road so you could get out. I mean, like, isn't that funny? That's kind of ironic. Like, if that was really what was happening, then it would require you actually to do that.
We do it anyway. That's what I'm saying. It's more natural to do it that way. Because that's how we survive. We survive better in groups that work together. And it doesn't work if one person owns everything and everybody else owns nothing. And that was kind of his point. And she couldn't. Look at her face. She can't respond to that, and she knows it. Because anything she says, she's going to be the villain. I mean, he freaking painted her into a corner and just dropped it. He nailed that for an antagonistic Fox interview. He did a great job.
Well, you know what? He did it in a very like gentle and classy way, like where he really just comes across very well.
Yeah.
Really.
He's a great politician.
Strong but kind, classy. You know what I mean? Like all positive things. Yeah.
And he's a regular guy, so he can explain it in a way that makes sense. Which I think is the nice thing about him. I mean, I wish we were that are clear, that we could explain things in a way that's that clear to other people all the time. You know, I know for me, sometimes it gets a little too academic and people just roll their eyes. Rightly so. But I admire that about him. That's what I'm saying. But